Big box. Hey everyone, and wow, I cannot believe what I'm looking at here. I knew that I really wanted this Thor Breaker of Brimstone statue in my collection by Sideshow, but I didn't know what I was getting into. I've received in the recent weeks a few premium format figures, a maquette or two, and some of them have clocked in at a pretty good size, both in terms of statue height and in terms of box size. This definitely sets a new standard. 32 inches, 32 whopping inches in height, 14 inches in depth. The width here is 28 inches. That's a lot of inches. All right, but enough about this box's dimensions. Let's get into the artistry that actually went into creating this fabulous packaging. You've got a photograph of the statue itself right here. It looks good, but what I really want to talk about is the color palette and what I think it's reminiscent of, and that is Thor Ragnarok. When you think about it, it makes sense. At around the time that Sideshow was designing and developing this piece, that's when that movie dropped. It became the creme de la creme of all three of the Thor movies immediately. Arguably, the #1 reason for it was, on top of the storytelling, the different aesthetic that came with it, and the brighter, more colorful color palette that went with it. Something reminiscent of, say, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which basically had every color in the spectrum on it at some point or another. What I'm seeing here is motion. Bright, colorful motion, reminiscent of the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard. And that's pretty cool. Now I want to talk about what that means to me, but before I do, I really want to just get this statue out of the box, get it on the table, and take a look at it, okay? So here we go. Okay, wow, here he is, and isn't he magnificent? Certainly a tall piece, puts the statuesque in statue. No, that's not quite right. Still, I think he warrants a little bit of decor here. I don't think that we can talk about the God of Thunder, certainly not the Norse God of Thunder, without a hammer, for one thing. And mead. So, obviously the key part of the presentation of this piece, one thing that makes it stand out above and beyond other Thor pieces that we have seen, is this base with the fire-crowned head of a dying or already dead Surtur, gasping his last gasp, perhaps, as Thor leaps over him, one assumes, to finish off his minions in Muspelheim. Everything about this is so elegant, and clearly a very specific design aesthetic has been applied. You can just see the way that I know that I talk a lot in other videos about leading lines when it comes to photography, but every line about this, every curve about this leads you in 3 dimensions up to the figure itself. Your eye gets drawn in by Surtur's face, his horn curves around and leads you straight up to the God of Thunder where that curve continues all the way through. I just love everything about that. I don't know how it could have been done any better. So props to the designer, props to the sculptor Daniel Bell for pulling this off and doing it so exquisitely. One of the things that I want to point out about the base, and I'll just show you right now a quick assembly of turnaround assembly of the figure itself, but it comes in several pieces. There are several different pieces of fire that need to be attached to the base itself after you get the box opened up. That includes this bit of fire that comes out of Surtur's mouth, this tongue, if you will, this tongue of flame, as well as this pillar of flame that erupts from behind him and forms the basis for the support of Thor. The figure itself, the statue of Thor, comes with a key in the shin, in his left shin, that plugs into a keyhole at the top of this column of fire. And it's certainly a unique way of, in my experience, it's certainly a unique way of getting this to work. How would I describe my experience with assembling it? I would call it sheer unbridled terror. I couldn't even remotely imagine that this sort of assembly would even remotely hold this figure upright and in a stable fashion. And it does so impressively. It's just a massive tower of flame that, for whatever reason, is completely stable. I'm sure the weight of Thor probably contributes to it. But masterful engineering by the guys at Sideshow. Props to you guys. Massive kudos. I have absolute confidence in this ability, in the ability of this statue to stay the way that it is for a very long time. Now, speaking of Thor, let's talk about this character here. The paint, the texture of the sculpt, exquisite, absolutely exquisite. The leather on the front of this cuirass of his, if that can be called a cuirass, very much on point. Reads very much like cowhide. It's a paneled effect going on with this outfit. You can see on the side here that there is some sort of a texture going on, like some sort of fabric. I'm reminded of the fabrics that you see in motorcycle jackets that are designed to be breathable so that you can stay cool at speed, but are tough enough that should you crash, they will hold up to the intense friction and pressure and all the stresses exerted upon them by asphalt, stones, gravel, what have you. And so you can walk away from a crash hopefully relatively unscathed. So something like that, possibly. We're talking about the Asgardian society is clearly a bit more high-tech than modern American society, or modern Earth society, modern Midgardian society. So you can expect that they would have some sort of technology that would not only, well, keep you safe during motorcycle crashes, but probably keep you safe from the blades of dark elves, the teeth of dragons, the axes of frost giants, and what have you. But again, leather reads like leather, as does the leather on the tabard itself. The boots, identically well weathered. The paint on this, man, the detail on his armor is incredible. I'm looking at every individual scale of this scale mail armor of his and just thinking about the amount of painstaking attention to detail that had to go into sculpting every single one of those pieces. I'm sure that it was done in ZBrush. Still, I can't even imagine. It's lovely. Now, let's draw your attention to a certain other elements. I really love the knot pattern that's going on his belt, both pieces of the belt, as well as the signature plates that are typically in the center of Thor's chest, but they've moved them up to the top to hold the cape, and down here at the bottom of the belt. It's a modern take on Thor, and I dig it. Speaking of modern takes, that T right there in the middle. That T is unique to a very specific artist who's handled the job of drawing Thor on and off for more than 8 years now. I think his first foray into the world of Thor was quite a bit before that, but and I'm talking about the inestimable Esad Ribic, a Croatian artist who began his career drawing Thor with this book, Thor and Loki Blood Brothers, a book that I read years ago, shortly after it was first released. I actually bought this hardcover specifically to show you for the review. Reason I did that instead of digging out my issues is because, quite frankly, I don't know where those issues are. I have far too many comic books, and it would take me longer to actually go through all those comics than it would be to go out, find the hardcover graphic novel, and bring it to bear. I have always loved Ribic's work, if for no other reason than the similarity that his art holds to one of my favorite artists of all time, and that being the incomparable Frank Frazetta. I'm just going to show you a little bit right here. Perhaps I'll take some stills and throw them up on the screen. But every time that I see a massive splash page of his, or just a single panel page, I'm reminded of Frazetta's work. The inspiration is very clear. Let's just go with this interesting splash of an imprisoned Lady Sif there on your left, and of course Thor battling Loki there on the right. That's not quite Frazetta-esque, But I think that you probably know you can probably see what I'm talking about here. Ribic started working in comics prior to Blood Brothers. I should clarify that. But I think just based on my limited experience with his work, that's really where he started to shine. And you saw it more with the introduction of these books. Jason Aaron's Thor, God of Thunder. It's a 25-issue relaunch of Thor for the Marvel Now era. I missed this when it came out. I didn't get to read it. I don't even know why. I think that part of me rebelled against the idea of a relaunch, so I just walked away from it. And I didn't come back to Thor until Jane Foster became Thor. Spoiler alert. And as such, while I dearly loved the Mighty Thor with Jane Foster as the God of Thunder, the Goddess of Thunder in this case, I was a little bit lost because there were certain elements of the story that I was not privy to. And while Aaron and Dodderman, Russell Dodderman, as well as various other artists who took on the chores for that book, did an admirable job of filling in the blanks whenever they could, you can't really hope to absorb the whole thing unless you actually read it from cover to cover. Why would you start a novel in the middle? You read it from cover to cover. It's the only way to get the full story there. I didn't do that until recently. When I found out I was getting this piece, I knew that the whole design was based on Ribic's art. So I decided, okay, it's time. It's time to fill in that blank. Before this, I read every issue of Mighty Thor with Jane Foster as Thor, all the way up through War of Realms. So I was privy to that part of the story, and now I got to go back and experience it all from the beginning. Sideshow has done well to pay homage to this epic era in the Thor mythos. As a lifelong fan of Thor, I have treasured the Walt Simonson era greatly. I greatly enjoyed J. Michael Straczynski's run on the title. Beautiful storytelling. But this, really, this brings me back. All of a sudden, I was 13, 14, 15 years old again, and thrilling to tales of Beta Ray Bill and Thor and that one single ridiculous issue Ragnarok and Roll. Yeah, I'm flashing back to it right now. I'm totally getting overcome by memories here. The point being, this piece means more to me now than I think I could have imagined. It's going to make a fine addition to the collection. I don't know where I'm going to put it. If you look back here, you can see that the shelf's kind of full, and he's just so big, I'd have to move 2 pieces out to make room for him. So I think that for my collection, Thor, Breaker of Brimstone will have the honor of receiving a pedestal all his own. I can think of no higher honor for such a magnificent piece. It's really, really a standout. So if you have a Thor collection and you're wondering how this piece will stand up next to yours, look no further. Heimdall, open the Bifrost. Whoa, okay. I got a little bit more than I bargained for there. Can anybody even see me right now? Okay. So yes, this is it. This is my Asgardian collection, as it may be. From my left, over here, you're right, I have the modern Thor premium format, quote unquote, modern Thor, more representative of, say, the aforementioned Straczynski era of the God of Thunder. Obviously, to the subject of today's discussion, the Thor Breaker of Brimstone premium format figure. Exclusive? No, I wish. And of course, right next to him is the lovely Jane Foster Thor premium format figure. This is the exclusive, but I display her right over here. And if I gave her the Yarnbjorn, then Yarnbjorn would block Carol Danvers, AKA Captain Marvel. And that's just not acceptable to me. Down here up front we have Thor, Throg, the Frog of Thunder, however you want to call him. And obviously over here to my right, your left, is Angela, the exclusive version of Angela Premium Format Figure, which I dig because it's a Neil Gaiman created piece that actually wound up making its way into the Asgardian mythos in Marvel Comics. And that's badass. I believe she's Thor's sister. Is that right? Yeah, I can't remember. It all blends together in the end. Anyway, so that's everything. Up next is a bit of a photo gallery. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and I will also answer them.
Vikings, Valhalla, Mjolnir, the Rainbow Bridge, and Loki. Norse mythology has become so pervasive in modern culture that you'd never know that so many of the old stories have been lost to history, victims of time and cultural appropriation. But the stories of gods are the stories of people, and myths and legends have always evolved to serve the needs of those people. While other comic book companies were elevating their heroes to godhood, Marvel literally brought a god to Earth and made him a human. And therein lies the secret to Thor's success, the strength behind his endurance. He's us. In Thor's relationship with his father, we see our past at war with our future. His battles with literal giants and dragons and trolls that life throws into his path mirror our own daily struggles. We live and love just as he does, laugh and fight just as he does. His battles are our battles. His defeats are echoes of our own, and his perseverance inspires us. His victories give us hope. The hope that if a god of thunder will fly from almighty Asgard to seek peace and love with us mere mortals, then maybe, just maybe, we might actually be worthy.